learners to a session on the lesson Development of Socialization. From the beginning, we've been talking about the stages of infancy to babyhood, and now we're talking about the development of socialization during babyhood. Welcome to the session. I am Professor Rose Nembiakim from the School of Social Work, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Let us understand what you're going to learn from this session. So after this session, you'll be able to understand socialization in a child, the development of morality during babyhood, the role of discipline in children, importance of family relationship, and personality development in babyhood. So when you talk about babyhood, we have established the fact that the first few months of the birth, the time is where it's very important and crucial for the baby, and from there on the babyhood starts, and that's where the baby starts having a lot of development, a rapid increase in terms of the height, in terms of the weight, in terms of capacities, abilities, and so on and so forth. And now we're going to talk about the development of socialization amongst the baby. Now, what is this development of socialization? Early social experience play a dominant role in determining the baby's future social relationship and patterns of behavior towards others. The baby's life is centered around the home. It is here that the foundations for later social behavior and attitudes are laid, and that is why we call home as the first school of the child. Whatever the child learns at home is what he or she brings out in the society where he or she starts mingling with. Now, whether the baby grow up to become extrovert or introvert individuals depend mainly on their early social experiences. Now, this is another concept that there are certain people who are introvert. Introvert means people who keep to themselves, who doesn't talk much, and extroverts are people who are outgoing, talkative, and can make friends easily. Now, this attitude or this characteristics of the baby in terms of being introvert or extrovert would depend on the early social experiences that he or she may have in and around the house. And that is why we say that when a baby's life is centered around the home, it is the foundation for their later social behavior and attitudes. Now, there are two reasons for the importance of these early foundations. The first one, the type of behavior shown in social situation affects their personal and social adjustments. Secondly, once established, the social foundation tend to be persistent as children grow older. So that is the reason why we say that the foundation, which is the home of the child, which is the initial foundation for later social development, have to be really strong, because the type of behavior that a child shows during social situations will affect the personal and social adjustment, and similarly it will become persistent, it will be consistent with the child as and when the child grows older. And that is why we see that the foundation, which is the home, has to be in a very favorable environment for the child. Now, early social behavior follows a fairly predictable pattern, though variations can and they do occur as a result of health or emotional states or because of environmental conditions. Now, during the first year of babyhood, babies are in a state of equilibrium, which makes them friendly, easy to handle, and pleasant to be with. This is, as we know, the first year of babyhood, where the baby doesn't understand much things, or where the home front provides them with the ability to be who they are. And that is the reason why we say the babies in the first year are in a state of equilibrium, because they are a part of the environment, a part of the social cycle. A lot of people come and meet them, talk to them, so they become very easy, friendly, and it's only afterwards that the baby starts understanding, starts interacting, and you come to know whether the baby is going to be introvert or extrovert, or the baby likes a certain person or not. Now, having said that, it is pertinent to mention here that around the middle of the second year, baby tends to become fussy, uncooperative, and difficult to handle. Now, this is because the equilibrium has set in, is done with, and they start understanding. If they see new faces, they are not very friendly. And if they don't like a particular food, they become very fussy. And if they are playing, then they are not cooperative. So it's a kind of a difficult stage to handle during the second year. Now, before babyhood is over, equilibrium is restored and babies again exhibit pleasant and social behavior. So, before the babyhood is over again, then they start understanding the momentum of the faces, or the food, the kind of food that has been fed, or the kind of games or the kind of time he or she uses. So, this equilibrium, which was there earlier in the first year, comes back to before the babyhood is over, and then the child becomes pleasant again, pleasant to talk to, pleasant to be with, and friendly, and so on and so forth. Now, this is basically about the aspect in which we talk about the socialization of the child. Now, let us understand the development of understanding. What is understanding for a child? Would the child understand if you teach them something, or scold them, or try and interact with them? So, what happens is all babies begin life with no meaning of the things they come in contact with in their environment, which is very important. Now, for the first time, the baby is opening their eyes. For the first time, they are seeing things. They are seeing the trees, they are seeing you, they are seeing the furnitures, they are seeing the car, they are feeling the wind that is blowing in their faces. So all these life forms begins with them without any meaning attached to the things that they come in contact with in their environment. So they acquire it through maturation and learning when they start understanding what they observe. So, simply put, when a child was in the mother's womb, it was protected, it was shielded from different kind of diseases, different kind of problems and issues. Now, once the child comes into the world, what happens is he or she starts to see a lot of things that is very new to them. So that is how we see when the emotional expression starts developing, of anger, of fear, of joy, of curiosity. Mainly curiosity, because for the child, the faces, the new faces apart from the parents are new. When they see a bird, when they see an animal, it's all curiosity. And once they understand it, it gives them a joy of living. So it is important to know that only when the child becomes matured a little bit and starts learning what is in and around their social environment, they observe through their behavior, and they observe a lot of things and start understanding that these are the things that exist in and around them. Now, as new meanings are acquired, babies interpret new experiences in terms of their memories of previous one. So certain things is that once they observe, meanings are attached to it, and they interpret the new experience in terms of the memories of which they have in the previous ones. Now, the association of meanings with objects, people, and situation results in the development of concepts. Babies show recognition of familiar people, object, and environment through pleasurable responses, just as they regard strange people and objects with fear. Now, this is one of the expression that a baby has. Now, as mentioned, the baby doesn't even know who their parents are. It's only when they see constantly the mother or the father talking to them and patting them and hugging them, or even the grandparents, or even the immediate relatives whom they see almost every day, or they become familiar with those kind of people, then they attach a certain sense of recognition to the people with familiar faces. And whenever they see them, they start being joyful about the fact, and they're being happy about that. So it's the same way with the toys, the pet toys which they have or which they play with. So they attach a meaning to it, and they respond to it with pleasure. Now, similarly, if the baby is introduced to a stranger for the first time, or to any new object which makes a lot of noise or startle the baby, then they will recognize it with the emotion of fear. And that is how when people introduce new things to babies, the baby starts crying. the baby starts being curious, and that is how we know that the baby is not very comfortable with that environment, which definitely will take some time for the baby to become familiar with the environment of the person that he or she is being introduced to. Now with that, let us come to the understanding of morality. What is morality? Babies have no values and no conscience, and so their behavior is not guided by moral standards. Adults, on the other hand, have values, have been taught values, have been taught ethics, and have a lot of conscience within them. Usually, every human being have values and conscience within them, and therefore, their behavior is guided by moral standards. And which means that if a person takes into crime, then his moral standards are low, or a person who acts with certain or a person acts in an abrupt manner, then we can clearly say that the person has no conscience at all. So similarly, baby stage is different because they have no values and no conscience, and so their behavior is not guided by moral standards. Definitely, this means that they are neither moral nor immoral, because the baby has nothing to understand. The baby has just come into this world, and he or she is still learning the nuances of life. And as and when they grow, they are taught about values, they are taught about conscience, they are taught about ethics, they are taught about morality. So as of now, babies have no values, and therefore whatever they do, whatever they act, however they act, it is neither moral nor immoral. And with that, we can say that gradually babies learn moral codes from their parents, as well as the necessity of conforming to these codes. Babies, when they go to school, children, when they go to school, the school teaches them a lot of moral codes, do's and don'ts. Similarly, parents also teaches them. And when we say that the home is the first school of the child, this is what we mean by that. Apart from learning a lot of etiquettes and principles from the home, or the home being the first environment which allows or which provides opportunity for the child to grow, it is also the place where the babies learn moral codes. Now, if the parents are morally correct, the babies will pick that up from the parents or from the family. And if they're immoral, that's what the child will pick up. However, at that stage of babyhood, they will not be considered as immoral or moral, because they have no clue as to what is happening. But the home is where the babies learn moral codes from, and that is why they're also being taught to conform to these codes, and the concept of right and wrong starts developing in the homes. The parents starts teaching them. Learning to behave in a morally approved manner is a long, slow process. The foundations are laid in babyhood. So you see a lot of parents scolding their child. When the child is about to jump, they say, no, don't jump. So this is a kind of the process in which the baby understands that jumping from a higher ground is wrong, because he or she may get hurt. So similarly, there are certain aspects of the righteous way to do things and the wrong way to do things, which a parent teaches them. So these foundations are laid during babyhood. Now, it is also important to note that a baby is in that stage of moral development, which Piaget had called morality by constraint. Now, this is one of the authors who talk about the stage of moral development, and he calls it a morality by constraint. This is a very important aspect which you can understand. Apart from Piaget, Freud has also talked about a lot of things in regard to mostly in regards to the sexual development, but this is what the moral development is what we are talking about. So the morality by constraint is what Piaget has talked about, and it is that stage of moral development of a child where they are trying to understand, as mentioned, things that is right and things that are wrong, what is a moral code of conduct, and in depending on the kind of foundation the parents lay down for the child. Now, here the first of the three stages in moral development is we are going to talk about. The first of the three stages in moral development is that this stage lasts until the age of 7 or 8 years and is characterized by automatic obedience to rules without reasoning or judgment. So you see that most of the parents complain about the child being very obedient till the time they are 7 or 8 years of age, and by the time they are 10 or goes into the adolescent stage, the young adolescent stage, which starts from 10 years old, you see the parents complaining that the child is arguing with them or knows a lot of things and is not listening. So what happens is the stage like the 7 or 8 years is characterized by automatic obedience to rules without reasoning or judgment. The child simply conforms the uh, uh, to the words of the parents and just listens without questioning. When we have been talking about the terms of reasoning or judgment, it is important to understand the role of discipline in a child. Now, what is this role of discipline? The main purpose of discipline is to teach children what is regarded as right and wrong by the group with which they are identified. So, discipline is one important aspect which a child learns from the time they are born till the time they grow. And the home, like we call, is the first foundation which teaches discipline in a child. It is also important to make sure that they act in accordance to this knowledge. Well, this is definitely important, and discipline is what teaches the child to understand what is regarded as right and wrong, and the child have to act in accordance to that knowledge, that what is right and wrong, for the life to become better without having to be morally conflicted. So with strict discipline involving negative reinforcement, for example, punishing for a wrong behavior, even young babies can be made to follow a pattern of behavior. Now, when you talk about strict discipline, probably a lot of people believe in the notion that is spare the rod and spoil the child, or spoil the rod and spare the child. This is mostly common in a lot of the Indian society. But when you talk about the foreign society, the Western world, we see that a lot of parents they refrain from using physical force to discipline the child. However, in India, it's different, and probably that's the reason why we have a lot of discipline being enforced in regards to sparing the child and spoiling the rod. Now, when during the young age, if we are able to tell the babies what is discipline and how they have to be reinforced, if it also includes involving negative reinforcement, then it may help or may not help depending upon the situation. And therefore, however, once you reinforce a certain set of discipline, then babies follow a pattern of behavior which they carry it on ahead in life. Before babies are punished for wrongdoing, however, they must learn what is right and what is wrong. So what happens is, instantaneously, you can, let's say a baby is doing something wrong. That's because the baby doesn't know whether what he or she is doing is right or wrong. So first, they have the right to be informed that what they're doing is right or wrong. So in spite of being informed that what they're doing is wrong and they still continue to do that, then one can also have negative reinforcement for them to set a certain pattern of behavior. But without informing what is right or wrong, it would be wrong on the part of the parents or the guardian to just punish the child for wrongdoing. So it is important that they must learn, or the baby should be informed about what is right and what is wrong. Now, with negative enforcement or reinforcement, we have the concept of positive reinforcement. What is positive reinforcement? Well, positive reinforcement is the reward or praise for the right behavior, which is equally significant for making the baby follow a disciplined pattern of behavior. So what happens is, let's say you tell a baby that you have to eat food. The baby is informed that if you eat your food or your vegetables, it is a good habit, and if you don't eat, that's a bad habit. And let's say if, the baby still continues to not eat the vegetables, then you might use a negative reinforcement to punish the wrong behavior and which sets a pattern. But on the other hand, if the baby eats the vegetable, then you praise the baby for the right behavior that he or she is followed, and then you could reward in terms of giving them with a sweet or with something which they like. So that sets a pattern. So they follow a disciplined pattern of behavior. Now, when you say all this in terms of behaviors or in terms of socialization, in terms of discipline, we have mentioned that home is the first foundation of a child, where the child learns certain behavior, where the child learns certain emotion, and where the child learns to grow as a person with moral standards. So when you talk of all these concepts, the most important aspect for a child when they grow up is the family relation. What is a family? Family consists of the mother, the father, the grandparents, the relatives, the uncles, the aunts, including the child and the sibling. Now, we are all aware that the early environment of babies is limited primarily to the home. Therefore, family relationships plays a dominant role in determining the future patterns of a baby's attitudes towards others and behavior in relationship with others. During the babyhood years, parent-child relationships are more important than any other family relations, because that is what the child learns, that is where the child learns from, and that is whom the child picks up certain behavior from. So a parent-child relationship is one of the most important aspect in the initial years when we talk about the growth of a baby or during the babyhood years. So the relationship between a child and the parents is of utmost importance, and that is the foundation, the core foundation from where the babies pick up certain characteristics or personality as they grow up. Now, all babies need, at least during the first 9 to 12 months of life, the continuous care of one person, usually the mother or a satisfactory mother substitute. So what happens is during unfortunate situation when the mother is not there, then there's a substitute. But if anyone would have it, then it's always good that the mother is a part of the baby during the first 9 to 12 months of life, because that is the person who gives continuous care. If not the mother, even the father would do a very satisfactory job. So comparatively, it's either the mother or the father or both the parents who have to give love, care and affection to the child during the first 9 to 12 months, which definitely molds the child into a better person, or with the kind of warmth that the person or the child could be given. Now, such care not only makes them feel secure, but shows them the satisfaction they can derive from a close personal relationship with another person. So what happens is, when the child is given the security, when the child is given that protection, they become close to the parents, they become close and understand the kind of behavioral pattern, or sets the behavioral pattern with the other environment that he or she is going to be introduced. Now, let us understand the personality development in babyhood. Now, how does personality develop, or why does personality develop, and why does children from different region, religion, demography have different personality? It is very important to note that the potential for personality development is present at birth. Now, Thomas in the year 1970 has emphasized personality is shaped by the constant interplay of temperament and environment. So, as mentioned here, environment as well as the temperament plays a very important role in shaping the personality of a child. Babyhood is a critical time in the development of personality. Since the baby's environment is limited almost exclusively to the home, and because the mother is the most constant companion, the kind of person she is and the kind of relationship they share will have a profound influence on the baby's personality. Now, this is what exactly we mentioned a while ago, that if the baby is in constant touch with the mother, or in constant touch with the father, or better still, in constant touch with both the parents, the personality of the parents get transferred to the child. The child personality develops, the child understands or imbibe, or the child is molded into the kind of personality the parents have. And that is why it is very important that the child environment is good, is happy, and is able to adapt a certain situation. Now, genetic studies of the persistence of personality traits over a period of years have revealed that patterns established early in life remain almost unchanged as the child grows older. Yes, so that is how we know that once a child establishes certain pattern of personality or certain characteristics is developed, the character of a child is developed in the early life, then it stays with them and it doesn't change. So with this we understand, and in today's class we've talked about the kind of personality development that happens during babyhood. We even talk about a lot of things in terms of the emotional development of a child. We also talk about the expressions which the child gives when he or she is comfortable with certain things, and the kind of emotional patterns that a child exhibits. That could be anger, that could be fear, that could be curiosity, that could be joy as well. So we also know that a family relationship is the most important aspect for a baby in their growing years, because the family is the first foundation of the child when he or she comes into this world. And so depending on the family, depending upon the parents, the mother or the father, the characteristics or the personality of a child develops. So I hope you all had a very useful information, and thank you so much for your listening. Thank you.